Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening to those live, good evening to those who are actually here in person. Even more important. Okay. Let's start with the following. There's a lot of things to see in this week's Parasha. I just gave a shir. I was just saying to you, the people before, I was giving a shir in German. I do these shir now in German, so I just gave a shir for an hour on the Chumash. And we have another 45 minutes to come over here. Hi, sorry. And there's so much to see in this week's Parasha. So I'd like to share a little bit with you about this today. Other things than what I said over there in that share. So Aseres HaDibros, I think people mistranslate Aseres HaDibros. What does a Dibra mean? What is Dibur? Speech.
Yeah, speech, yeah.
Right? How do we translate it? Commandments. What is commandment? What would you say? What would be the Hebrew word for commandment, actually? A mitzvah, yeah? A commandment's a mitzvah. Right? Hi, Avril. A commandment's a mitzvah. Right? But you're not having 10 mitzvahs. Some say that there's more than 10 mitzvahs in the 10 commandments as well. You have 10 different sayings, whatever you want to call them, speeches, etc., etc. By the way, just to mention this Shabbos, there's a Shabbaton here in Shul, and I'll be speaking at 3:15 on who are you really, a deeper look at jealousy. Okay, so if you're around, please do join us. Hi, Brian. Hi, Stuart. So tonight we're going to start with the first commandment, and it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The first commandment that we see will be in chapter 20, verse 2, if you want to look at it. Anochi Hashem Elokecha means, I am Hashem your God, that took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. That's the first commandment. Okay? Is that a commandment or is that a statement? It's a statement. It seems to be a statement, right?
I think it's really a commandment to believe it, isn't it?
Okay, so that's what we're going to see in a minute, right? If you read the words just like that, hi Johnny, if you read the words just like that, it would seem to be a statement, not a commandment. I am Hashem your God. However, Ramban Nachmanides tells us that this is commandment, as I've already said correctly. It is a commandment to believe in God. This is a very important thing. So if you say, well, there's a commandment to believe in God, it sounds almost a weird thing. Can I command you to believe in something? I command you now all to believe in dragons. What is that supposed to mean? Yeah. So I can't command someone to believe in dragons. How can I command people to believe in God? Yeah. Yeah. So I'll explain to you a very, very important point, and this is the first point that I want to speak about tonight. And that is, when we speak about emunah, what does the word emunah mean? Pardon? So we always translate it as faith. But let me show you a verse in last week's Parasha that would seem to indicate that it doesn't really mean faith. Okay, so if we go back to the fight, the battle that Amalek had together with the Jewish people, you are looking at chapter 17, verse 12. We'll read it first in the Hebrew, and then we'll read it in the English. In last week's Parasha, chapter 17, verse 12. Not everything we're going to say comes from this week's Parasha, but you'll have to bear with me. It's all in the Torah.
17:12.
17:12.
392.
392. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay. Videi Moshe Kvedim. What happened was that Moshe was, when he lifted up his hands, the Jews would win at battle, would be successful at battle, and when he let his hands down, then Amalek used to become stronger. Now we get to the verse that we want to say, verse 12. And tell me which word stands out to you in this verse. Videi Moshe Kvedim. That, right? The hands of Moshe were heavy. Vayikchu Evan, and they took a stone. Vayosimu tachtav, and they put them underneath them. Vayeshav aleh, and he sat on it. Ve'aharon b'chor, and Aaron b'chor tamchu b'yadav. They supported his hands. Mizachon, one on each side. And now read the next words. Go on, Michael.
Vehi Yadav Amuna.
Right? Ad bo hashomesh. Vayhi yadav emunah ad bo hashomesh. What word is looking at you over here?
Amuna.
Right? Okay, can I have the English translation of that, please? Can you have a look in the English, page 393 in the Art Scrolls?
And he remained with his hands in faithful prayer until Caesar.
Okay, so it's interesting. So the way Rashi says it is he remained with his hands in faithful prayer. But many say that the word here, emunah, means steadfast. And his hands remained upright, steadfast, until the coming or setting of the sun, until the end of the day. So in that translation, and most people translate it that way, in that translation, emunah bo hashomesh means his hands were up steadfast, and therefore emunah means what? Would really mean being steadfast about something. It wouldn't mean belief, right? So how do you get from emunah belief to emunah steadfastness, right? So there's a large discussion about this. It's not so straightforward, but there are plenty Rishonim, plenty of the earlier commentators who are of the opinion that you should search and understand. Some people have what they call emunah pshuta, simple belief. Anybody heard of a simple belief? Some people say, look, I believe. Why'd you believe? Don't ask some stupid questions. I'm a believing Jew. I'm a believing Jew. What are you asking me these questions for? I believe. I've always believed.
Like children do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to children, things are very simple. You know, if my kids say to me, like, you know, how's a kid born? And I say to them, you know, if they're too young, I don't want to tell them yet. So I said to them, you know, it's a miracle. God does it for us. And it is a miracle, right?
That's enough.
Yeah, that is enough. We all know that not everybody has such an easy time having children. And every child, the amount of miracles that go into forming a child from what? From the two basic things that the man and the woman give you, a sperm and an egg cell. It's a miracle. I don't think it's lying to a child to say, you know, it's a miracle from God. But when you're 5 years old, you just nod and say, oh, right? When you're 15, they'll go, come on, Daddy. There's obviously some input on your behalf. Okay, you got to go further, right? But as you said, to children, it's very, very simple. The problem is, for many of us, that we remain with our childish view of lots of things, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. Can you even remember? Sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. We remain with our childish view of the Torah. We never think beyond who Avraham Avinu is. We never think beyond who Yitzchak is. You read the stories, you say to yourself, oh, these stories, yeah, I read them as a kid. They were okay as a kid. Now, as you get older, they start sounding a little bit less sensible. You're right. They do sound a little bit less sensible. Do you know why? You've not spent the time in studying them and understanding them. I was learning a Gemara this week. A Gemara in Megillah. I'm learning now the Gemara having to do with Purim. And it tells certain stories about different Amoraim and what they sent each other and what they said to each other on Purim. And you read it and you say to yourself, the Gemara felt it important for posterity to record this conversation that seems to make absolutely no sense. Like, Abaya says something to the sort of, that sounds like, I went to one house and I had a suda and I was full, and I came to somebody else's house and they gave me 60 different plates of different food. I ate them all up, and when I came to the last plate, I was still so hungry, I almost ate up the plate with it. Right? Now you read that, I remember reading that in high school, you're like, all right, whatever. I learned it again now, and I say to myself, the Gemara obviously has better things to do with itself than telling us that Abaya was this glutton who almost ate up a plate. Abaya comes up on every page, every second page in the Gemara. He was one of the greatest Talmudic scholars that we had. That is the view that we should have of him. This guy sitting on the phone going, oh my God, give me the plate, I'm going to eat it now. Somehow, I get the feeling that's not really what was happening. And so there's explanations that it might mean that he was learning 60 because of 60 tractates in the Talmud. He learned all of them or learned part of them, and he was learning, he was having a great time reviewing them, whatever it might be. There's a deeper meaning to it. And the Gemara records it for posterity because there's a deeper meaning in it. But if you read it, the first time you read it, you just say to yourself, what is this supposed to mean? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And why would the Torah spend and waste time on writing this? Because you have to grow with it as well. And so when it comes to emunah, when it comes to belief in God, it is not about what you said before. You're right. There is that. A child, a child will say to you, Daddy, is there a God? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's the end of the discussion for many kids. Because they know Daddy tells them the truth. And so Daddy's going to go ahead and Daddy's going to tell you what he believes. Yeah, there's a God. Oh, okay, no problem. That's fine. If you tell your kids, you've never seen them before, but there are flying chairs, and they're in New Zealand. I've been to New Zealand, and they're flying chairs. Your kids will believe you on that as well. They will, because children are gullible, and you can teach your children. I mean, that has a positive, has a negative side to it. But there is that element. But we cannot become adolescents and adults and remain with the same juvenile understanding of what God is. Why is there God? I don't know. When I grew up, somebody said there was one. Yeah? There's a mitzvah of emunah. There's a mitzvah of belief and a mitzvah of being steadfast in understanding what it is. So whether it is like different Leon, who else is here? Has anybody else here gone to Rabbi Mitch's Derech Hashem Shiurim? I don't know who else has been. Have you been to Rabbi Mitch? Yeah? What are they like?
Deep.
They're deep, but everybody says they're excellent.
They're
I've been told they're excellent. And they are very, very good. And people walk away and they say, you know what? I never realized, I grew up with Judaism and everybody tells you these things and nothing makes sense. And it's like, okay, that's what Judaism is. It's a whole hodgepodge of stuff that where nothing makes sense. And then suddenly somebody opens up this book in front of you and says, wait, I'm going to make order now out of this whole hodgepodge. I'm going to give you an understanding what it is that we believe, why it is that we believe it, the depth of everything that we believe. And suddenly you read this whole thing and you say to yourself, wait a minute. It's not that the whole thing never made sense. I just never learned it. I just never gave myself the time and never took the effort to really understand what this is all about. Because if I had, then you get to emunah in steadfast. And whether it is philosophically speaking, whether it is by looking at the creations of the world, right? I think we've had these conversations a few times already, Michael, about the eye and the just pure genius of the eye. Do you still get surprised by how amazing the eye is? Really? And how many years have you been in optics? 35 years in optics, and it's still but that's what I'm saying. To be 35 years in optics and to be able to still say, I can't believe how this thing works. How brilliant it is. And what are we? Yeah, and they're still learning more things. You told me, what was it? How many layers did they find to a certain? What was it? You told me that time about this.
In the cornea.
Pardon?
In the cornea.
Yeah, they found what?
They found an extra layer.
They found an extra layer. That is.
They thought there were 5, and now they think there's 6.
Now they think there's 6 layers of the cornea, right? And each layer has a different function, right?
Were you telling us about when the tefillin with the eye? Was it?
I didn't tell you that, but between the eye and the nerve over here, that's a different discussion. Yeah, well, that's a different discussion about the eye and the tefillin and the nerve. That's but I'm just now saying, in general, you look at that, you say to yourself, "Wow, miracle of miracles!" That this little thing inside my head can see.
And the very first thing we learnt was we see the signals upside down and back to front.
Yes.
And yet the brain puts it the right way around.
Well, isn't that amazing?
And that's the very first thing we learned.
That's the thing that you learn, and that's fun. Yeah, I remember in school you used to get those diagrams with a tree, and you used to have to the two things the two intersecting and how it comes into your eye and how big it is. Yeah, I'm sure you can tell me stuff from chemistry as well. It's not only it's not only in optics where there's amazing stuff going on. It's everywhere. Everywhere you look, God has his imprint in the entire world. There's nowhere in the world where you can look and you can say, you know what, that doesn't seem to make any sense. That doesn't seem, the trees grow. The fact that a tree grows, what did you take? You took a little seed this big, right? You stick it in the ground. it ferments, and then in that you have all of the plans, all of the details necessary to grow the roots, the stump, the branches, the leaves that have the photosynthesis, the flowers, the fruit, the taste, the colors, the other pips that come into these fruits that then can bear another tree. So you have not only all of, if we had to sit down and write volumes and volumes of how a tree is created, you need a library the size of this. You need a bigger library than that, just to write all the books to create everything, how it works. And then you'd need a factory. We've still not been able to create. We can create plants. But in order to create all the things, the smells, the textures, the tastes, the amazing xylem and phlegm that goes up and down, that sends up the water, and how the water makes its way, etc., etc. If you were to do all of that and to bring together a factory that would be able to create all the bits and pieces that go into a tree, how big would such a factory need to be? You'd need a massive place. We couldn't eat, but even if we could, we'd need a massive place to create it. Couldn't just put it together like, you can't do it in your back garden, right? And yet God said, look, you eat an apple, inside the apple is a free ticket. Not only for one apple, for a new tree that for 50 or 100 years could give you hundreds and hundreds of fruits. Each one of them furnished with their own little encyclopedia that all you need to do is stick it into the ground and it rots before it grows. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing is just amazing. And you keep going through the world. You can be amazed by looking at the world and seeing what this world holds for us. So whether it's philosophically looking at it, whether it's looking at the world, but whatever it is, it behooves us. Anochi Hashem Elokecha says, you cannot just look at this world and say, why does God exist? When I was a kid, somebody told me he existed, so he must be around. That's not good enough. That is not doing ourselves justice. That's not doing Hashem justice. How do you go about understanding? How do you go about realizing or recognizing what it is? Okay, you need somebody to help you on that journey. You need somebody to teach you. I'm not saying that this is something that's so easy. But what I am saying is the first commandment is belief in Hashem. That means we have the obligation to look. We have the obligation to learn. We have the obligation to think and to discuss and to realize and to recognize that God created this world and that He is our God.
Don't you think...
I'm sorry, yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, don't you think at the same time we can learn something from a child's vision? I know you were talking to Dylan before.
So let me add to that. That's an excellent question and an excellent comment. There is something very important, and I think I've seen it. It's brought... I saw it recently, 2 weeks ago. I saw it somewhere. It brought by Rabbi Yerucham, and I've seen many other commentaries say this, that when we go about investigating as religious Jews or as believing Jews, when we go about investigating, the way we go about investigating is by first adopting the child's mentality, meaning to say, I believe there is a creator to this world, right? I believe that. Let me now investigate before you start.
On the first page,
yes.
Derek Hashem,
yeah.
That's what it says.
That what?
That's what it says.
First believe and then investigate?
Believe first, because if you don't believe and you go to Derek, you might as well not bother.
Well, no, but the thing is, some people say to me, like, Rabbi Chonon, how are you? Some people say to me that they will not believe until I've proven it to them.
Yeah, it says
right?
You must first believe. That's what
right.
It says. You must first believe.
And that's really what it is. So I'm saying what the child has is very important. And again, it allows us also, people say, we, whether religion's the opiate of the masses or religion dumbs down people. You can talk about it in many different numbers of ways. But it's important for us as parents, we educate our children. So you say, oh, you're not giving your child a chance. Yeah, let your child grow up first and then educate them. We don't do that with a lot of other things. People say, why don't you start letting them turn 18, and then at 18 you can have philosophical discussions with them. Yeah, Nobody's ever told me, you know what, let your kid grow up as a rotten, spoiled brat until 18, and at 18 you'll have a conversation with him or with her to try to see if you can get them to calm down a little bit and maybe to say please and thank you, to behave. We teach our kids manners from the youngest of ages. My 2-year-old says thank you and please already, right? Not that he always uses them correctly, you know? You give him something, what do you say? Please? No, that was thank you. You didn't get that one right, but it was almost, you know, cute enough, right? But we teach our kids from a young age. Of course we teach our kids from a young age. We want our kids to know. We want our kids to learn. We want our kids to understand. And we need to do this. Yeah, you should teach your children. However, and that's why I'm saying it is not unimportant. You're making an excellent point, Roger. It is not unimportant, the belief that the children have. It is very important. It is the way forward. And not only that, I think when we investigate, we are not really investigating with so much of an open mind. We're investigating with the belief that I believe in God, but if I want to be able to believe in God in a much greater way, if I have a greater understanding of that and I understand the philosophy behind it, and I understand also the brilliance, etc., that goes with it, that'll give me an even greater understanding, right? But I'm not starting with a fresh page and saying to myself, well, I don't know, let me look into this. Because that's a very, very dangerous slope. That's a very dangerous place to be. Because if you're not convinced, well, then there goes your whole belief. Which is why I'm saying what Ivor said before is very important. And you're right, there is room for that. There's not only room for that, that has to be the first step. It's actually axiomatic to us as Jews that we believe. And then on top of believing, we then investigate and bolster our belief with everything else that we have. Okay? That's number one. Number two, over here also, we speak about lo yelecha, the second commandment. We're in verse 3 over there. Lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai. You should not have other gods before me, gods with a small g. Yitro, sorry, chapter 20, verse 3. I forgot that we moved somewhere else. Chapter 20, verse 3. Chapter 20, verse 3. And page 408, sorry. Thank you. All right, in the Art Scrolls. You should not have another God before me. God with a small g, obviously. Okay? So I heard a very interesting, very important idea over here as well. I'm listening now. I'm not sure if I will or if I won't do this. I'm listening now to a lecture series by Rabbi Beryl Wein. Have you heard of Rabbi Beryl Wein? Rabbi Beryl Wein is a famous historian. And Rabbi Beryl Wein, he used to be my Rosh Yeshiva, his yeshiva. He used to own the yeshiva in Monsey before he made Aliyah. He made Aliyah about 20 years ago. He's been in Israel for 20 years. And a really, really fascinating person. A man that's well-versed in Jewish history, in halakha, in ashkafa, in all sorts of things, in understanding the ideology, in understanding halakha, and understanding Gemara. And he was a lawyer at one point. And then after being a lawyer, he was the president of the Orthodox Union. I mean, he had a very, very broad base of different experiences. Amazing, amazing person. And he is giving, or he gave a series. I think it sounds like this series was given in 2000. So I think the series is about 17 years old now. But he gave a series entitled Orthodoxy Confronts Modernity. Yeah? And what he means with that is he speaks about the idea of Kant and how Kantian philosophy started off. He was the foremost new rationalist philosopher, and from Kant's ideas then developed this new idea of humanism, rationalism, reform, etc., etc. And it started off one way and then morphed and turned into a very, very big movement against religion, or against or to trying to reform religion. Excuse me. And he mentions, or he speaks about, he's got 4 lectures, and each lecture deals with one specific great Jewish leader and their response to modernity. Okay? So, for example, he speaks about Rabbi Yisrael Lipkin of Salant, or known as Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is the founder, anybody know the founder of? The Musar movement. The Musar movement was the movement that started where people started taking character building and making it part of their day-to-day life, people realized that it was not good enough to sit and learn Torah only. But to learn Torah without learning how to refine your character, without learning how to make your character something better, you're missing a big part in your Torah learning. And so therefore, he created this movement called the Mussar movement. And his answer, or basically Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's answer to the idea of modernity is, if you create a better person of yourself, you will realize that the issues are not so much of an issue. Reb Shamshon Farrell Hirsch is another one of these people, and I heard him give this idea. I wasn't listening to about the one Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. I just listened to one about Reb Shamshon Farrell Hirsch, it was a very, very interesting discussion, because Reb Shamshon Hirsch created something in Germany that was almost unheard of. However, it worked for German Jewry, and it worked for a certain amount of generations, even though nowadays you won't find that many true Hirschian Jews. But his commentary and the person himself, he was a brilliant man. And what he believed, and he created this, is the Jew has to be a Jew and a mensch. But when he just said as a mensch, he spoke about not being a mensch as in the Yiddish, be a mensch, behave like a mensch, right? But rather he believed very strongly in this idea of rationalism, and he believed it was at the cusp of Judaism, and that we as Jews have the ability and the obligation to look and to learn and to understand things as much as we can. And from there, that is how we go about building ourselves and building religion. So that the idea of rationalism wasn't contrary to Judaism, but according to him, it was part of Judaism. And one of the ideas that he espouses is a very interesting idea that comes from this week's Seder. We know that a person has to be godlike. We want to be godlike. What does that mean, being godlike? So we say, Mahu Rachum, Avata Rachum, because he is compassionate, you should be compassionate. Mahu Chanu, because he gives, we should give. We are, for example, Chesed, there's no mitzvah in the Torah to be nice to other people, to give to other people. But the mitzvah in the Torah is to be like Hashem. So whatever we see that Hashem does for others, when God does kindnesses for others, we do similar. God visits Avraham Avinu when he's sick, we see God visits the sick. God buries Moshe Rabbeinu when he dies, we bury the dead. Those are considered these examples of chesed that God gives to humanity. Right? So he said that in the same way we are trying to be godlike in behavior, there is one other aspect that we should be taking on from God as well. And that aspect is the aspect of oneness. Now, again, we will never be one like God is one. Because the oneness of God, it's not for now, it's not for tonight, because it's a much more philosophical discussion that doesn't really belong to this Chumash here. But philosophically speaking, if you look at the oneness of Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's a different oneness than anything else. Right? It's a oneness that's not made up of parts, etc., etc. It's a very, very different thing to discuss. But what he does posit, Rav Hirsch, is the following. Many people have, for want of a better word, split personalities. Let me explain what I mean. Have you ever met someone that seems really, really nice, and then you come to his house and you see this guy is not a nice guy at all? Has that ever happened to you, Alan?
No, not really.
No, really?
I've never seen it.
You've seen it? Yeah. Anybody else seen this? Yeah, Elliot seen it? Yeah, Roger. Okay. Alan, you got good friends. Your friends are much nicer than the average. Everybody else has seen it. Hmm? Maybe only see the goodness in everybody. That's also a beautiful
I
thing.
didn't say it was a friend's house.
No, it doesn't have to be a friend. No, it doesn't have to be a friend. Do you know what?
Somebody
I
met.
You know what? It doesn't even have to be a friend. I'm telling you, I've seen rabbis where I've been disappointed. Right? You'll meet many people that on the face seem really, really nice, really charming people, really outgoing people, until you get them on the wrong day, or until you get them in their house where they let down their guard, and suddenly you think to yourself, is this the man that I'm so respectful to? Is this really the guy that I respect? Look at how he behaves. He's not a mensch. That's not how a human being behaves. Yeah?
If you make him feel insecure.
Pardon?
If you make him feel insecure.
No, I'm not talking about, yeah, you're right. I mean, you can make him feel insecure, but pardon?
That often precipitates it.
You think so? Yeah, but I'm not even talking about my doing. You know, I've seen people that are very nice to the outside world, but when they come home, they have no patience for the kids. They have no patience for the wife. So whether it is in shul or whether it's in their business or whether it's their customers, do you know what? My customers, let me make this up. I don't have a business, but my customers, they come into my shop. If you're going to treat your customers badly in your shop, what are they going to do? They'll vote with their feet, right? They'll leave. Yeah. In general, I'm saying in general, wives and children don't vote with their feet the same way. They just don't, right? And so you don't have to keep that same face to them. Because what are they going to do? Walk out on you? Come on, you don't believe they'll actually walk out on you.
Today, you know.
Yeah, okay, it depends. No. I'm not saying they don't. I say in general. That's why I said in general. Yes, there are times when women will divorce the husband because the husband just doesn't treat them well. And they'll be 100% right if the husband doesn't treat them properly. Yes, in certain cases, it's grounds for divorce. Sometimes people are being a little bit too overzealous with this whole idea, and they get divorced when really they could just get a bit of help and sort the entire thing, right? But in Judaism, we believe in divorce. Because if it's necessary, it's a necessary. It's not a necessary evil. It's a necessary good. Divorce is not in and of itself evil. God gave us a mitzvah in the Torah of divorce. When there's an issue. When there's a problem, when there's a serious issue over there, then the Torah tells us then there is a bill of divorce. There is such a thing. We don't annul the marriage. It happened, but we've now called it quits. But in general, you'll see that there are people that in the shop or in their own synagogue, outwardly, they're lovely, lovely people. Inwardly, you see them then in their own confines, and that whole facade goes away. Because at home, I don't need to put on a show. Yeah? There are two people that know you in and out. People are two entities that know you in and out. Hashem and your wife. Yeah? They probably know you better than you know yourself. Your wife often can see those mistakes and then those issues that you have that you yourself can't see even. Right? So, we need to realize that there is a oneness we need to adopt. And that oneness means that we are the same throughout. Now that doesn't mean, okay, well, I'll stop being nasty to my customers. I'm nasty at home. Let's take the nastiness and bring it out, right? Rather, you need to start changing your behavior. It's actually interesting. My wife told me that she spoke to a lady today or yesterday who told her that she made a chart with her children, and the chart was for Hanukkah. They were going to get something big or something special. Every time one of them was nice to his or her sibling, they would get another stick on the chart until the chart was filled up. And she said it was interesting. The older kids, the younger kids, they all got into this. And after a month, they were good enough. And yes, they got a big present for Hanukkah. But she said the present was worth it. Because after a month of them behaving like mention to each other, what happens? They start to... They change. They pick it up. It becomes part of them. That's right. It becomes as... That's right. And slowly they start realizing, wait a minute, I don't have to bicker and fight all the time. I can actually be nice to my sister. I can actually be nice to my brother. There's no issue with that. And I can still get whatever I need. And I'm not going to be some kind of, doormat just for being nice to my brother. That doesn't make you a doormat. That's not what it makes you. Right? So you can instill in other people changes. You can instill them in yourself. But you need to realize a person needs to be the same throughout. So that means if you're a nice person, you're a nice person outside the house and inside the house. If you're an honest person, or if you're a religious person, you're not only religious in certain instances, yeah, So you see a guy in shul, and in shul he's sitting and he's shuckling and he's davening and he's looking very, very frum. He's really, really putting on a great show, right? Watch the same guy when he davens at home. What happens to the same guy that shuckles so hard in shul when he davens at home and he missed davening? Let's say he overslept. Oh, I missed davening and I need to get my kids to school. Finished. What happened to the shuckling? What happened to the intensity? Is that a show? There's so many people around. You're looking around. You're making sure. Looking behind me. No. Not enough people finished one answer yet. I need to daven a little bit longer. How would it look 3 minutes? Most people done. Yeah, now everyone's done. Now I can say House of Shalom. Yeah? How horrible is that? Yeah? It's not a race. And it's not about brownie points, and it's not about ego. And when it becomes about brownie points, and when it becomes about ego, it becomes fake. And when it's fake, when it's two-faced, it stinks. Nobody really likes to have that kind of thing. Roger, go on.
So you're saying you're making a virtue out of consistency.
Yes.
Now, if a person is consistent this way, that way, the other way, what about when that person makes a special effort?
Oh, absolutely.
He's not being consistent.
A special effort in what way?
It could be in any way. It could be being, if a person is by nature not kind.
Yes.
Or if a person by nature is not generous.
Yes.
Or if a person, whatever faults we all have.
Yeah, okay.
What if he says, right, I'm really going to make a special effort.
It's special. That is definitely special.
But it's not being consistent.
You're right, it's not being consistent, but the point is that he should try to make that special effort again and again until he can consistently change his behavior in the other direction. But you're right, consistency in negative behavior is not something to applaud. He's nasty, but he's nasty to everyone. Yay, he's consistent,
See, I'd say consistency is a prison.
Pardon?
Consistency is a prison.
I see what you're saying. In a prison, in what way?
Insofar as it limits what you can do.
Right. I don't know if it needs to be consistently the same. It needs to be consistently the same, but consistent in a certain way. Meaning, if I'm kind, sometimes I'll be extra kind, and sometimes I'll be a little bit kind, and sometimes I'll be just a very little kind. But at least I'm consistently kind. I don't think we as human beings have the ability. We're not God, so we don't have the ability to be consistent in a flat line. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody, really, right? It doesn't. It doesn't work for us as human beings, right? And I'll mention one more thing. Maybe I'll say that as the end, because I was considering saying this. I mentioned this also, and with this we'll finish. We have, if you continue further down, and this goes back to consistency and the other ideas. Verse 7. Lo sisa es shem Hashem elokecha lashov. You should not take God's name in vain. Ki lo yinakeh Hashem, because God won't forgive. Eis asher yisar shema lashov. The one that will forgive, that will take his name in vain. Leon, we're probably only one page further down, no? Chapter 20, verse 7. Yeah. Yeah. Shav. Here we'll say something else from Rav Hirsch, and with that we'll finish. It goes back to this consistency that you mentioned. Shav means in vain, is what's the words for shav? Shin, vav, aleph. And it is related, says Rav Hirsch, very intimately related to what other word in Hebrew? Shaveh. Shaveh means equal. It can mean worth also, but it means equal. And says Rav Hirsch, a brilliant idea. Shaveh is shav. Equal is for naught, or equal is wrong. What does he mean with that? What he says is, and this is true on a personal level, but it might be true also on a level of action, which comes back to what we spoke about, consistency. If I say to myself, I am so impressed with Leon, I want to be exactly like Leon. So I buy Leon's car. I can't grow your hair, I'm sorry, but I get Leon's glasses, and I get Leon's shirt, and I start taking on Leon's schedule, and I start behaving exactly like Leon. And after about 2 or 3 years, you can almost not tell the difference between me and Leon. Will God applaud me and say, wow, you've done such a great job at becoming Leon? What will God say to that? Pardon? He wouldn't be impressed with it. Why? Because Shaveh, no, nothing to do with you. It could have been anywhere around the room. I chose you at random. Please don't think that this is, The reason this is not worth anything is because Shaveh equal is Shav, in vain. God is not looking for clones. I'm not here to clone Leon, nor am I here to clone Alan or Phil or Ivor or anybody else in the room or anybody else watching. That's not what God wants. Not in people and not in action. If my davening every single day is a clone of the davening the day before, then really I'm not really davening properly. Because there'll be some days where I won't have the same focus. That's just being a human being. I can't focus. There'll be some days where I'll have a super focus, where I'll be able to focus much better than I've been able to focus until now. There'll be different days where different things work out better for me. There'll be some days where certain brachas will have a great meaning for me. If I have a day where I'm hoping to do a good deal, I might daven much more when it comes to Parasha. When I have a day I'm going to the doctor, I might daven much harder when it comes to Rifa'inu, heal us. I can't have the same. Consistency is important. But to make everything identical, that's futile. So be consistent. Be consistent in your approach, whatever your approach will be, but not in an identical way. We don't need identical people. We don't want even identical twins. I know a few sets of identical twins. They're not exactly the same. Even though they have the same DNA, they're not the same. Even though you'd say, well, they're exactly identical. Yeah, I find it hard to tell them apart. Thank God the two identical twins, they wear very, very different glasses. Otherwise, I won't be able to tell them apart, right? So I always look at the glass and go, oh, hey, it's you, right? It makes life easier. If they were to wear the same glasses, the whole Manchester would walk around and go, no, I met one of them. I don't know who I met today. I'm not even sure I was talking to, right? So we don't want identical. Similar, okay. I can take some of your good traits, Leon. Of course I can learn from your good traits. Of course I can take on things that he said. But if I were to clone him, if I become Shaveh, if I become exactly equal to him, then that's Shav. That's futile. That's wrong. That's not, not because it's you. It's wrong to be like anybody else. Because God doesn't want you to be anybody else. He wants you to take your talents, your temperament, your inner feelings, emotions, and who you are, and then make out of that the best person that you can be. And if you don't, you're missing something. If you're just a clone of a copy of somebody else, that's shav. And that's as far as the person is concerned and as far as the actions are concerned. So again, there has to be a uniformity in the way we behave. If you're from at home, you're from on holiday, you're from wherever you go, you're not sometimes from and sometimes not. If you daven, you always daven. Consistently, you should try to be a certain way. Yes, there'll be fluctuations, but as long as you're more or less consistent, sticking within a range where it makes sense, then you're doing the right thing. Anyway, thank you very much, all of you who joined me tonight. Thank you very much who joined me live or not live. Please like and share if you did enjoy it, so make sure that other people get to watch this as well. Thank you.